Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
So, this happened about 7 years ago, but I still think about it every so often. Back then I worked as a security guard, the type of security guard that travels around in the city to do these routine checks on objects. You know, making sure that doors, windows, gates etc. are locked properly, that no people are on the property, check for fire hazards, attend SOS/robbery alarms, and so on. There is this mall in the city, and per our contract we did 2 security walks in the mall. The first one when the mall closed, where we basically emptied the mall for customers, locked doors/entrances, checking all the alarm systems. We end the first round by making sure the mall is empty of both customers and employees, check surveillance, and turning on all the alarms. The second walkthrough usually took place many hours after in the middle of the night, where we made sure all the entrances is indeed locked, but also took another sweep inside to check for people and so on. This particular evening the first security walkthrough went by without any issues, just the usual few customers taking forever to get out. The second walkthrough, however, something really weird happened. I started off by walking around the mall, making sure nothing is out of the ordinary and that everything is locked. I step inside and check the alarm monitoring, where everything is turned on, no error codes or logs of people being inside after I left the mall my first time for the shift. I go to the top floor and then work myself down each floor, everything is looking good. Eventually I end up in the cellar floor, which consists of this toy store on one side, and opposite to the store is this huge playroom. Both the playroom and toy store have this see-through glass wall separating them from the hallway in the middle. Anyways, I got down there and did my usual walkthrough of the cellar. The toy store had this sticker on the door saying something about collectibles 50% off or something. I walk up to the glass door and shine my flashlight towards the collectibles section. As I'm focusing on the collectibles, I hear this sudden loud scream behind me, and I mean really loud, like I wanted to cover my ears. The scream sounded like a little girl, and it screamed "Mommy," but with a sort of rasp and desperate tone to it. Like a death scream, if that's a way to describe it. I quickly turn around, freeze in place whilst shining my mag light in the hallway and into the playroom. I just stand there for a solid 10 to 15 seconds trying to see who screamed. After collecting myself, I immediately think that somehow a little girl must have been left in the playroom when the mall closed, so I run into the playroom and start looking through all the toys and plushies, but no girl was found. I then double check every little surface in the cellar, but no one was there. I began to think that my colleague, who ended his shift many hours ago, is playing a prank on me, so I go back upstairs to the alarm/surveillance monitoring, but again there's no logs of anyone but me entering different zones/using the keycard. I then check the surveillance, but here's no one but me in on all the cameras. I also started to chuckle at myself as I thought I looked like a coward when it happened. I settle my mind to it being some sort of doll in the toy store with a broken voice box or something, but weird that the scream came from behind me from the hall/playroom. I leave. I visit the store the next day and ask about the doll that screams, but they don't have any dolls with any kind of voice box. They also tidy up and clean the playroom every morning, and if they find toys left behind that they themselves do not own, they make a list and put it in a storage box. No dolls whatsoever. I also ask if they have baby monitors for sale, but they did not. I'm very skeptical by nature and absolutely do not believe in ghosts and will always find a natural/logical non-supernatural explanation when stuff like that happens, but what happened during that night shift I just can't explain.
I was in the military stationed in Germany. I was put in a group called Quick Reaction Force, QRF. Sounds cool to civilians, but we were just running security checks on the fences around each post. Unlike in America with one large post, the military has several small posts all across the area, and our job was to check all the fences around each small post. We were the night shift team, and things progress over the months of doing this to absolute and complete boredom. So one of our team, being that Germany is one of the most haunted places in the world, supposedly, started looking for hauntings in our local area. We were surprised to find one of the posts we were checking the fences on has a haunted barracks. Even better, we were about to give this post back to the German government. All soldiers, equipment, everything has been removed from this post, and the American government was simply holding onto the post because we said we would give it back on whatever specific date they picked, etc. We as QRF had to do rounds on each post every night, including this post. Added benefit of patrolling an abandoned post is our job was to ensure no one broke in, no one has taken up residence in these buildings, etc. So we do all of our checks skipping this post for last, so we have as much time as possible to do our investigating. Now we do the standard checks of the post fences, buildings, all the things we are supposed to do, and end at the haunted building. To our dismay, all doors and entrance points are locked up tight as they should be, and we are not going to break anything to get inside because we would get in a lot of trouble. Then one of our 5-man team, one being female, finds a window that has been left open. I know this sounds coincidental, and it would make the story better if we had actually broken a window, but in all fairness, a lot of soldiers are lazy and a window was left open. The entrance. First thing, this is an old German building, beautifully built, and the first floor window is high to get to. Remember, this comes up later. It would take at least 2 people to get into this building without some parkour training, but I digress. We make entrance, and we are still here to do a job, so we do conduct ourselves properly and begin to clear the building, looking to see if someone left this window open as an entrance point for themselves, but due to the height of the window we all deemed it pretty unlikely. According to the haunting story, the haunt is on the 3rd floor. So we do as soldiers should do, going room to room, clearing the 1st floor, moving to the basement, then to the 2nd floor, skip the 3rd floor, clear the attic, and then back to the 3rd floor, starting at the opposing side of the building from room 303. Once we get to room 303, oddly the door wide open, only one in the building like that before we got there, mind you, we skip it, clear the other rooms, and finally rest at 303. We know for fact we are the only ones in this building with no signs of people having taken up residence in its abandonment. We found 2 occurrences when a soldier removed themselves from this room 20 years apart, stating almost identical stories of waking up to a little girl in their room then disappearing into the shadows. The soldiers made a report with the on-duty NCO, non-commissioned officer, and would not cross the doorway, going back into the room, having to wake up other soldiers to go into the room and remove their items across the threshold of the room. Supposedly this haunting little girl's name is Sandy. Entering the room. This looked at first like the 100 rooms we had been in prior to coming to this room. Keep in mind, this barracks was not dilapidated. When I say Americans used to be in this barracks, it wasn't years. It was months since this was used. My unit, myself included, was one of the ones that helped clean this place out. We took some pictures in the room. Hey, we survived room 303, haha, funny right? Pause if you know me, I am an. And have to push the envelope. As my team is laughing, we survived, I pop off loudly with Sandy. You could honestly hear everyone's in the room's 4th point of contact clench. Shut the... Same time, background noise, muffled noise from hallway. Silence. Moments felt like an eternity. Do it again, the NCO quietly/whisperingly commanded. Sandy. Muffled. Yes. The next moments are as if time fast-forwarded, making up for the time that when it stood still. I remember seeing the NCO and the female soldier taking off like they had been hit with lightning, barely catching up with them on the landing of the stairs that was just past room 301 heading down. They ran to the window of the room straight ahead of the landing like they were going to jump out of it, till I informed them we were on the 2nd floor, not the 1st. They swiftly turned around, running the length of the building down the other side of the building set of stairs, getting us to the original window that was left open. I catch up to them again before we get outside. Hold up, catching my breath and stopping them. Everyone calm down, we are building this up, the look of dread almost fleeing from their faces. Reality kinda setting in. We all conversate about how ridiculous we are being, I think secretly talking ourselves down in our own heads, as we let our nervous laughter. Attempt number 2. Gathering ourselves up for attempt number 2, we trek across the 1st floor to the stairs almost directly below room 303. We begin our ascent almost in completely silence, gripping our weapons, yes, fully armed on this detail, maybe a little more firmly. The building in complete silence. We reach the top of the stairs. Yes, this building has an attic, but those stairs are not directly connected to the stairs we are on, but in an adjacent door at either end of the top of the main stairs. Take the left and proceed back into room 303. In the room it was silence amongst us, everyone looking dead at me like go ahead and do it. Not gonna lie, I was hesitant. Sandy. In the hallway, it almost sounded like a giggle. A good friend of mine we will refer to as John was on this detail with me. I stack on the door pieing the corner, military stuff. Not exposing the majority of my body and do the right side lean weapon raised, realizing John is doing the exact same maneuver on his knees, underneath me. To a civilian this would look like the old Scooby-Doo cartoons with heads leaning out of the door stacked on top of one another, but with raised rifles. I see in the dim light almost what looked like the last glimpse of a little girl's leg with the old-timey socks and shoe run into a room maybe 2 or 3 doors down. Thinking my eyes are playing tricks I hear, "Did you see that?" At this exact moment my heart goes from a mile a minute to a complete normal pace. I gain full grasp of everything like you normally are and not adrenaline hide mind, but my body is full rushed. Deep breath, step back into the room. "What was that? What did you see?" "Nothing, we saw nothing," in the calmest voice I have probably ever used. You asked him did he see that, "What did you see?" asking John. I cut the question off, "Everything fine." Everyone calm down, the room goes silent. Do it again, do it again, the group turns to me, calmly, "Sandy." As if standing in front of me in the middle of our little huddled group, invisible to the naked eye, yes. Leaving the room. In an absolutely panic, my newfound calm completely exited existence. Stairs are not stairs, they are mere latch pads clearing 5, 10 stairs at a time. Flying down the stairs is an understatement. Getting across the first floor hall, this massively long hallway, maybe took 5 or 6 steps. That high window we had to work to get in was wide open. I swan dive out of that window just before contacting the ground. I do a tuck and roll maneuver bringing me right to my feet. Looking back, it would have probably been my best ever and beautiful. Did I forget to say, oh yeah, I was the absolute first out of 303, down the stair, down the hallway, and completely out that building. We all managed to escape the building unscathed, and as the last of us leave the building we just start to laugh. Like the safety of the outside is all that was needed. Realizing we are still there to do a job, I get hoisted back in alone. I secure the window and find the only door, thankfully close to the window that acts as a one-way and is not chained shut. I rejoin the others in the back right of the building as we are all taking pictures. Haha, we survived, cycling through who's holding the camera so everyone gets 5 or 6 pictures in total. The pictures. The camera we are using is those old digital cameras, not the ones we have today with zoom and all that craziness. Pixelated screen. Kids' toys have better screens today than what we were using. If you know, you know. If you haven't put it together by now, our main location/control area is not on this small post but the main post a ways away. We laugh and joke on the trip back about how you were so scared, blah blah blah, nervous laughter like we made it all up in our heads. We get back to our area and start loading the pictures we took from behind the building, capturing how scaring the building looks in the barely lit area but nearby streetlights. As we load the photos, which obviously come on and take in series, we start to see something coming into frame in the 3rd floor window directly above us. Looking almost like a shadowisk type form, I sitting on the provided couch hear a gasp from across the room from the female looking at the pictures on the computer. All of us are now instantly leaning over her shoulder looking at these pictures. Next picture, the shadow become more and more defined. Next picture, more and more defined, till there are 2 forms like one adult and one child. Next picture. The shadows are gone. Zoom back out. They are now on the 2nd floor right above us. The smiles on our faces in the pictures seem almost idiotic at this point. Next picture, more and more defined. It's not even a question at this point, this was 2 outlines of people, shrouded in an all-consuming darkness. The backdrop behind them showing light barely creeping through the building from the street lamps, through the windows on the other side of the building. Then nothing. Now in the pictures, that tall wall, us standing on the grass, the window a couple feet above our heads, they stand. They are a bent over reach from the tops of our heads, us now smiling, laughing, not thinking twice that maybe, just maybe, whatever the hell these 2 things are couldn't leave the building. So stupid we didn't even notice, and then the last photo was taken. A month later. I am back at my unit, no longer on the detail. The post I was on had a German road drive beside it cutting us off from what we call the annex with 2 or 3 more barracks on it. They are easily seen from my barracks window. I had a soldier over there we will call Tom. Tom and John shared a wall in this barracks. On a random Saturday, middle of the night, I am awoken to a phone call from my first sergeant. I have to go to the post housing office. I have to get the keys to a room that wasn't being used in my barracks because Tom was now going to take that room. Odd, but barracks can get rowdy at night, so my though was someone got into a fight, 2 people were getting separated, booze was probably involved, etc. Tom moves in, everything is fine. Monday comes around and everyone keeps asking why Tom switched barracks in the middle of the night. There was no party, no nothing. They went to sleep, he was here, they woke up, and then he was in my barracks. They found it odd. I asked Tom and he wouldn't tell me. Then John found me and told me something that brought this memory flooding back. John was woken up in the middle of the night because Tom refused to go back into his room, and John had to carry all of Tom's things out of the room before Tom would help. Tom was not on the QRF detail with myself and John. Furthermore, John, myself, and everyone else on that detail didn't tell anyone about what happened at the haunted barracks because the military is young man high school, the grapevine is strong, and though doing our job they can find some way to get you in trouble or people will go look for themselves, which was in our opinion worse. I harp on Tom and he won't tell me anything. Again and again I try, but he doesn't tell me. Tom is not a religious man, to my knowledge, nor is he the type to believe in ghosts or anything like that, so the curiosity was killing me. Finally, on Saturday night, weeks maybe a month later, I bring down some beers and BS with Tom like we did when we were all broke, aka not payday weekend, and I get him just lit enough for him to tell me a story. Tom's story. Tom was sleeping, when for some odd reason he woke up, unsure why. He sits up in his bed to gather his surrounding. As his eyes adjust he sees a little girl at the foot of his bed. Immediately wide awake he crawls backwards to the headboard, eyes fixated on the girl. "What are you doing in here?" as the little girl giggles and steps backward into the darkness and disappears. Step being interpreted since as she moved back Tom could see she had no legs and was more floating there before disappearing. I had read this story before. It's extremely close to the two soldier stories that moved out of room 303.
I literally downloaded Reddit so can vent about this, because I could get fired if I talk about this. I'm a lifeguard at a water park in Las Vegas. We always brag about how, unlike our competition, we have had 0 accidents at the current location. Stuff always happens, like tubes will appear in the pool after we just took them all out and stacked them, chairs will move around after we just sorted them, wet footsteps on concrete when no one was wet, etc. We joke that we don't get paid enough to fight demons. It was just a joke to us, but not to our supervisors or managers. They always made excuses. It was always the wind, or I moved it, or they're my prints. They always got angry at us and said that someone could overhear us and complain. They even went as far as to threaten us with a defamation lawsuit if we talked about it on social media. Weird, right? If the park wasn't haunted, why would they care so much about us talking about it? I never cared because I believed my supervisors and managers. Maybe they did move the chairs, maybe they dipped their feet in the pool and walked away. That was until last month. It was 10 p.m. and we just finished cleaning the park. I had to stay later because I was getting a ride from my supervisor, Ryan. We were the few people left in the park, so we were doing a final walkthrough just to make sure everything was clean. We only had a flashlight and a few light posts illuminating our path around the park. We were walking by some slides when I hear someone, a woman, say, "Hello?" I looked at Ryan, who didn't seem to hear it. Then we heard her again, "Hello?" I freaked and Ryan, again, didn't seem to hear it. "Did you not hear that?" I said to Ryan. He shrugged and continued walking. I stopped and said I didn't want to do the walkthrough with him. He rolled his eyes and said if I didn't, I am refusing to work, which isn't a good thing to say to your supervisor. He told me I was probably just hearing things. I got a hold of myself and continued walking. We started getting to the back of the park where the light posts were dimmer and it was much quieter since we were further from the running water and the slides. Ryan and I started talking about school and college and what we were going to do when season ends when I heard it again, but it sounded closer this time. "Hello? Anyone there?" She sounded very confused and tired. I jumped and, again, Ryan did not care at all. I was so freaked out, I started feeling nauseous. I wanted to go home, but Ryan was my ride home, so I had to stay. What happened next haunts me. After we heard the voice, we heard what sounded like someone climbing out of the lazy river, soaking wet. No one else is here. If they were, they would be in the office. No one should be swimming. Ryan was angry. He thought a lifeguard snuck into the river. He turned around and started yelling, "What the fuck, go home, this isn't fun." He froze. I said a quick prayer and turned around. There was a lady, soaking wet, wearing a park shirt with our logo on it, but the logo looked very 2000s. I know what our shirts look like. I stand in the shop all the time to get some AC. I have never seen that shirt. She was hunched over and her hair covered her face. She spoke, "Hello, can you help me?" Ryan grabbed my arm and we bolted to the office. Lifeguards weren't allowed inside the office ever, it's a whole thing, but he let me come inside. He pulled one of the managers into the supply room and shut the door. Another supervisor started asking me if I was okay. I was breathing heavily and couldn't speak, but I nodded yes. Ryan and the manager came out of the room and Ryan grabbed his stuff and said, "Let's go." We got in his car and he said we needed to stop by the gas station first. When we pulled in, he told me to type my address in his phone while he pumped gas. When he got in the car, I broke the silence. "What the fuck was that? What happened?" He turned the car on and started driving. "I can't tell anyone, it's like a park secret, but I'll tell you if you swear you won't tell anyone." I swore. Back in 2002, before this location of the park was built, there was a park on the Strip. It was the only water park in Vegas. We only had one casualty, and it was a lady who came in with her family. She got drunk and went into the lazy river where she sank to the bottom of the river, and because there were so many tubes, the lifeguards didn't see her and she drowned. That's why we have so many lifeguards for the river and why our tubes are see-through. So was that her? Yeah. Why is she here? She's probably confused. She's always asking for help. So you did hear her? Yeah, but everyone does when you're in the park late at night. It's a whole different story if you see her. What happens if you see her? Nothing, but it's scary. The car ride was silent the rest of the way. I still work at the park, but Ryan talked to the managers and convinced them to let me work only morning shifts. Ryan quit recently due to college. I only told 2 coworkers, but only because they have had experiences themselves. Thanks for letting me vent. Also, appreciate lifeguards and all the shit we go through.
I guess it's about time I mentioned that my workplace is haunted. I've been a bartender here for about 8 years. I don't want to say where, because it's actually quite famous to the whole world. But nobody really knows that it's haunted except for the employees and previous employees. Most of us have an experience or two, although we do have 1 or 2 employees who have worked there for decades and said they've never experienced anything. But more employees have had experiences than haven't. I have been tapped on the shoulder, tugged on the shirt and felt hands on my back when no one is around and I'm alone in my space. Other employees have mentioned experiencing these things as well. Some have seen ghosts there. I honestly couldn't guess how many ghosts we have. A few maybe. The building is 3 floors, and the 3rd floor is definitely the scariest. Most employees will attest to that. In fact, we have a bar back in his 60s who has to clean up the 3rd floor at the end of the night, and he hates it so bad. He's had so many things happen to him up there. But he speaks mostly Spanish, and my Spanish is very amateur at best, so he's only conveyed a few stories to me. He also doesn't like to talk about it. He points at his arm, then rubs it, insinuating goosebumps, and shakes his head no. My boss saw an old man in a mirror upstairs on that same floor. She was washing her hands in the bathroom with the door open, and when she looked up in the mirror, she could see the hallway reflected in it behind her, and she said an old man peeked out of one of the doorways and looked at her. She hauled ass downstairs and sent security up to look around, but nobody was there. Apparently before I worked there, they had a security guard who was a really big dude. Really intimidating energy. One night he was supposed to be watching the 2nd floor while waiting to close up, and he was up there by himself. I guess he came down to my boss in tears saying that he could never work on any floor except the 1st floor again, otherwise he would have to quit. I mostly work on the 1st floor, and that's where most of my incidences have happened. The most notable one was catching in my peripherals a very short person in a white shirt walking super fast past my bar and into our kitchen. The movement struck me as strange compared to how our other bar backs moved, so I stepped out of the bar and checked the kitchen. Nobody was there. My main bar back, I will call him Carlos, told me about the ghost before I ever experienced it. So we've talked about the ghost a lot. Fantasma, we say. Spanish for ghost. After I saw this figure go into the kitchen and found the kitchen empty, I went over to Carlos, who was sweeping part of the dance floor. All I said to him was, "I think I just saw the phantasma." And he replies, "White t-shirt, this tall?" gesturing a very short height with his hand. It immediately gave me goosebumps. "Yes," I said. He replies with something like, "Yeah, I saw him walk into the kitchen earlier. I went back there to tell him he couldn't be there, but nobody was there." The barbacks claim to experience a lot in the kitchen. Really, there's experiences all over the damn building. If I told all the stories I heard, this post would never end. Maybe I'll tell some more another time.
So for those of you who didn't read my other thread, I was a security contractor for 4.5 years, and worked both stateside and overseas. Most of our stateside contracts has us doing what some would describe as military police duties, just on a private level, so we do access control, patrolling, respond to 911 calls on facility grounds, etc. Most of these locations are pretty rural, located in the western half of the United States, the kind of places you can still see the stars at night. This event happened in 2015, around May, and was probably one of the most WTF moments of my career at that point. Myself and another contractor who I mentioned in my previous post, then called T but who I'll now refer to as Ty, were manning an entry point to a facility located approximately 4 miles away behind us. In front of us was approximately 2 miles of semi-flat barren ground ended only by some hills, and behind us was the perimeter fence, approximately 9 feet high topped with barbed wire, with the earth behind that matching the earth in front of us. So on a sunny day or at night with a bright enough light you could easily see 1500 in any direction with little to no concealment to anything larger than an extremely small animal. We sheltered in a small 12-foot by 8-foot shack, powered with electricity and that had running water. The front and side windows could be popped out and upwards allowing fresh air in. So it's about 0220 in the morning. It was sitting at around 60 degrees, Ty and I decided to turn the lights off both inside and outside of the shack so we could see the landscape better. It was a moonless night, slightly cloudy, the kind of night perfect for camping, but it was dark. I mean beyond 75 feet you couldn't really see anything beside lights off in the extremely far off distance. As we sat there waiting for nothing, liking posts on social media, we both distinctly heard what sounded like a large quadrupedal animal approaching the shack, which was odd because neither of us had been briefed on anything like this occurring at this specific facility we were guarding. As we both turned around and began to look out the windows, neither of us could see anything, but it got louder, almost like it was getting closer. At this point you'd expect to see at least an outline of something because it sounded like it was easily within 50 feet of us, but nothing. We both were confused and justifiably concerned. Neither of us talked. We just listened and communicated with our concerned looks. This is what really FCKS with my head and his to this day. The closer it got the slower the steps got, and eventually it sounded like it went from being quadrupedal to bipedal. In talking it sounded like someone was now within 10 feet of our shack just casually walking around it. Believing our eyes to be deceiving us, we used the lights on our rifles to begin to illuminate the area, searching our respective sectors looking for anything. These lights were bright, the beams easily reaching out 250 feet, not leaving much to the imagination, and yet nothing, not a single thing, or person, but yet once we turned the lights off, the footsteps continued. I would have bet money I was dreaming if I was alone, but I wasn't. I had someone with me confirming what I was experiencing was real. We began to talk amongst ourselves. Night vision. Since we're working a night post, we're directed to bring our issued night vision goggles with us, so we use those, and start scanning, and we literally cannot see a damn thing, but we can still hear the footsteps. At this point we actually are so concerned for our safety we request help. In the meantime we leave the shack, helmets on, night vision on, and search the immediate area. It's important to note the night vision provided less long-distance vision than the flashlights. We disengaged the ENVGs and went back to flashlights. I mean, we searched, kicked over rocks, tapped our feet in divots seeing if there was a secret hatch. Nothing. It took our backup 20 minutes to arrive in the form of 2 half-asleep supervisors in an ATV. We kind of agreed to make something up, anything reasonable. We heard those footsteps for roughly 15 minutes total, and I honestly don't know what it could have been. I worked that shack like 4 times before then and a handful of times after, and nothing similar happened. What do you guys think? A shared delusion from late night exhaustion, or do you think it was something else?
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.